The first snow of December had arrived quietly during the night, settling over the village like a soft white blanket. When Alva opened her eyes, she noticed immediately how still everything felt. No cars, no footsteps, no voices. Just a deep, almost magical silence drifting in through her window. She sat up slowly, pulling her covers tighter around her as she blinked at the pale morning light. The houses outside were dusted with snow, the narrow road almost invisible beneath it, and beyond that, the dark shapes of the forest trees stood solemn and unmoving. It should have brought her excitement, the same excitement she used to feel every year when winter arrived. But something had changed, and the spark she used to have wasn't quite there anymore. Downstairs, she could hear her mother humming softly along with the radio, the familiar sound of cups clinking together. It was the same routine they had every December, one that once filled the house with warmth and anticipation. "Alva," her mother called out, "are you awake? We're bringing out the Christmas boxes today." Alva sighed quietly. The word Christmas didn't make her jump out of bed the way it used to. Still, she pulled on a sweater and made her way downstairs. The hallway smelled of cinnamon, old cardboard, and something nostalgic she couldn't quite describe. Boxes were stacked near the stairs, most of them worn at the edges from years of use. Her mother knelt beside the biggest one, her hair in a loose bun, a smile flickering across her face. Alva joined her, kneeling beside the box labeled Misk. She reached inside, brushing past paper stars and tangled lights, when her fingers touched something unexpected, a cold, heavy object. She slowly pulled it out and stared. It was a key. Not an ordinary modern key, but an old, ornate one shaped like a snowflake. Tiny engraved stars decorated each point, and the metal felt strangely warm. Her mother leaned closer with surprise. "I've never seen that before," she murmured. Alva turned the key in her hand, feeling a flutter she couldn't explain, almost like the key had been waiting for her all along. Alva stood in the hallway for a moment, the warm key still lingering in her hand, even after she slipped it back into her pocket. She tried to focus on the decorations, tried to settle into the mood her mother hoped for, but her mind kept drifting back to the strange weight of the key, the warm metal, and the way it felt almost alive. By the time the last star was hung in the window, she knew she couldn't ignore the pull any longer. Something inside her whispered that the key wasn't meant to stay in a box. It wanted to be found, and it wanted to be used. Outside, the world was quieter than before. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the air, settling on her coat as she stepped onto the road that led toward the woods. She glanced back at the house once, half expecting her mother to call her back, but the window only showed a soft glow from the kitchen light. Alva pulled her scarf tighter and kept walking, boots crunching in the snow. The deeper she went into the forest, the more the sounds of the village faded behind her, until only the hush of winter and her own breathing remained. She followed the small path she used to wander when she was younger, a path that twisted between tall trunks and low branches. Memories bubbled up as she walked, tiny secrets whispered to the tree when she felt lonely, silly songs she sang to the branches, and the strange comfort she found in its presence. As she approached the clearing, her heartbeat quickened. The old spruce stood exactly as she remembered, massive, ancient, and somehow watchful. Snow lay in thick piles around its roots, and the air felt heavier, almost expectant. Alva stepped closer, her boots sinking slightly into the untouched snow. She reached out with trembling fingers and pressed her palm against the rough bark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, just as she began to pull away, a faint vibration rippled beneath her hand, as if the tree itself had taken a quiet breath. She gasped softly, leaning closer. That was when she heard it, a single, delicate chime, bright and soft, like the ring of a tiny silver bell. She spun around, searching the clearing, but the sound didn't come from the branches or the wind. It came from her pocket. Her heart thudded as she dug into her coat and pulled out the key. It glowed faintly, the metal shimmering with a warmth that didn't belong to winter. She stared at it, stunned, then looked back at the tree. Now she saw what she had missed before, a circular marking in the bark, subtle but unmistakable. And inside that circle, perfectly shaped, was a small keyhole waiting for something that had been lost for a very long time. Alva stood frozen in the clearing, staring at the small, perfect keyhole carved into the bark. Her breath puffed out in pale clouds, and for a moment she wondered if the cold was tricking her eyes, but the glow from the key in her hand was real. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat, spreading warmth into her palm and up her arm in slow waves. She swallowed hard and took a hesitant step toward the tree, feeling an odd mixture of fear and curiosity swirl inside her chest. The forest around her felt completely still, as if it too were waiting to see what she would do next. She reached out with her free hand and brushed snow away from the circular marking. The bark beneath was smooth, almost polished, completely different from the rough texture surrounding it. It reminded her of something ancient, something that didn't belong in the ordinary world she thought she knew. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice catching in her throat, but even as she said it, she knew she didn't believe her own words. The key grew warmer, urging her, almost guiding her fingers toward the keyhole. Her hand shook as she lifted the glowing key. She hesitated, staring at the snowflake-shaped bow, the engraved stars, the gleaming metal. "If this is some kind of trick, it's a very strange one," she murmured, but no one answered. The clearing was silent, except for the faint rustle of distant branches. She took a slow breath and pressed the tip of the key toward the waiting keyhole. The moment the metal touched the bark, light flared around it, thin golden lines racing across the circular marking like cracks filled with fire. The key slid in effortlessly. A deep vibration pulsed through the ground beneath her feet. Snow fell in soft sheets from the branches above, sparkling in the sudden glow that filled the clearing. Alva stumbled backward in shock, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the tree. The golden light continued to spread, reaching out in long, glowing veins up the trunk and around the circle. The air shifted, carrying with it unfamiliar scents, gingerbread, warm spices, something sweet and citrusy, scents that didn't belong in a frozen forest. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the circle of light expanded, stretching into a tall, narrow outline resembling a door. The bark rippled like water, bending and folding outward as if the tree itself were opening. A warm wind swept over her, stirring her hair, making her eyes water. She blinked, trying to clear her vision, When she focused again, she saw it. Beyond the opening, there was no hollow trunk, no darkness. Instead, a soft golden glow shimmered like dawn behind the doorway. Snowflakes drifted in slow spirals, caught in a breeze that didn't belong to her world. Bells chimed faintly, their notes gentle and distant, as if echoing from somewhere far away, yet impossibly close. Alva took an unsteady step forward, drawn toward the glow. Her breath trembled. The key remained in the tree, still pulsing softly. "Is this real?" she whispered. She lifted her hand toward the open doorway, her fingertips almost brushing the warm light spilling out of it. The forest behind her held its breath. Just as she leaned closer, everything went white.